Hi everybody, this is Hana with Team Elite, where we inspire you to dream big and go bold. We are here with our Think and Grow Rich series, specifically our live audiobook series. We are on chapter number 2, Desire, video number 5. I'm here with Fahid Cheetses. Thank you so much for being here, helping out, giving us the juice of the book, Think and Grow Rich.
Good seeing you, Hana. Let's do it. Let's dive into it.
All right, guys. Desire outwits Mother Nature. As a fitting climax to this chapter, I wish to introduce one of the most unusual persons I've ever known. I first saw him 24 years ago.
Hana, what page are you on?
We are on page 37. This is the black and gold version.
Cool. Just so we have it for reference.
Yes.
Because a few of people are following up with the same book, so I want to make sure that we got it. 37.
Great.
Go ahead.
He came into the world without any physical sign of ears, and the doctor admitted, when pressed for an opinion, that the child might be deaf and mute for life. I challenged the doctor's opinion. I had the right to do so, as I was the child's father. I too reached a decision and rendered an opinion, but I expressed the opinion silently in the secrecy of my own heart. I decided that my son would hear and speak. Nature could send me a child without ears, but nature could not induce me to accept the reality of the affliction.
So you are gun blazing. I am not going to accept that as being poor, broke, don't have my own business, haven't been successful, didn't finish the degree, didn't get all, whatever that case might be, whatever is thrown at you, you refuse to take it as reality.
That's right.
That could be the case, but you're refusing to accept it. And then you're going to do what? The past 2 chapters we've been talking about it. Putting a plan together, write down the goal. So he did that in his heart, saying that the nature could give me a son like that, but I'm not accepting it, and I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna see to it that my son, my daughter, is gonna be able to hear and speak. Very powerful.
Very powerful.
Human soul on fire.
In my own mind, I knew that my son would hear and speak. How? I was sure there must be a way, and I knew I would find it. I thought of the words of the immortal Emerson. The whole course of things goes to teach us faith. We need only obey. There is guidance for each of us, and by lowly listening, we shall hear the right word. The right word, desire. More than anything else, I desired that my son should not be a deaf mute. From that desire, I never receded, not for a second. Many years previously, I had written, our only limitations are those we set up in our own minds.
So our limitations is what we set up for ourselves. So there shouldn't be any limitations for us. It might be harder, might take a little bit longer, might take more planning, might take more investment, might take more collaboration of individuals, but we're about to go to Mars.
Yeah.
Talk about limitations.
Yeah.
There is no limitations. I mean, just take a look in the past 50 years. Just take a look in the past 10 years. So many of the companies that are out there today, so many of the things that are out there right now. 10 years ago, we had no iPhone.
Yeah.
Think about that. How crazy is that? We're just barely having, flat screen TVs. Like barely getting out there, barely having the technology. Now everywhere you go, you get a free Wi-Fi almost practically everywhere.
Yeah.
All the businesses. That wasn't the case like that. I remember when I was in high school, dial-up network. Dial-up. Wasn't even DSL. 18 years ago. Now you can know exactly how old I am. But anyway, go ahead.
Disclaimer. For the first time, I wondered if that statement were true. Lying on the bed in front of me was a newly born child without the natural equipment of hearing. Even though he might hear and speak, he was obviously disfigured for life. Surely this was a limitation which that child had not set up in his own mind. What could I do about it? Somehow I would find a way to transplant into the child's mind my own burning desire for ways and means of conveying sound to his brain without the aid of ears. As soon as the child was old enough to cooperate, I would fill his mind so completely with a burning desire to hear that nature would, by methods of her own, translate it into a physical reality.
Fill the mind with burning desire.
All this thinking took place in my own mind, but I spoke of it to no one. Every day I renewed the pledge I had made to myself not to accept a deaf mute for a son.
So he's reminding himself every morning, every day. He's renewing his vows. He's renewing his thoughts every day to himself.
As he grew older and began to take notice of things around him, we observed that he had a slight degree of hearing. When he reached the age when children usually begin talking, he made no attempt to speak, but we could tell by his actions that he could hear certain sounds slightly. That was all I wanted to know. I was convinced that if he could hear even slightly, he might develop still greater hearing capacity. Then something happened which gave me hope. It came from an entirely unexpected source. We bought a Victrola. When the child heard the music for the first time, he went into ecstasies and promptly appropriated the machine. He soon showed a preference for certain records, among them, It's a Long Way to Tipperary. On one occasion, he played the piece over and over for almost 2 hours, standing in front of the Victrola with his teeth clamped on the edge of the case. The significance of this self-formed habit of his did not become clear until years afterwards, for we had never heard of the principle of bone conduction.
Bone conduction.
Of sound at that time. Shortly after he appropriated the Victrola, I discovered that he could hear me quite clearly when I spoke with my lips touching his mastoid bone at the base of his brain. These discoveries placed in my possession the necessary media by which I began to translate into reality my burning desire to help my son develop hearing and speech. By that time, he was making stabs at speaking certain words. The outlook was far from encouraging, but desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible.
Desire backed by faith will know such world.
Another hashtag right there, guys.
Right there.
Write that down low.
That's a good one. If you got some notebook, some pen, write that down. Very, very important. Very important page. Keep going, huh?
Yeah.
You're doing good.
Having determined that he could hear the sound of my voice plainly, I began immediately to transfer to his mind the desire to hear and speak. I soon discovered that the child enjoyed bedtime stories, so I went to work creating stories designed to develop him self-reliance, imagination, and a keen desire to hear and to be normal. There was one story in particular which I emphasized by giving it some new and dramatic coloring each time it was told. It was designed to plant in his mind the thought that his affliction was not a liability, but an asset of great value, despite the fact...
So the parents are planting ideas and thoughts in our mind from childhood. So that's our task.
Yeah.
So when we do have children, right, guess what we need to do? We have to plant those positive thoughts, those ideas, those imaginations. We need to do that. That's why your surroundings are very important. Because now, if let's say your mom and dad didn't do that, guess what you want to do? You want your associate, you want the people around you to plant those ideas and thoughts in your mind. Very, very important.
There was one story in particular which I emphasized by giving it some new dramatic coloring each time I was told. It was designed to plant in his mind the thought of affliction was not a liability, but an asset of great value, despite the fact that all the philosophy I had examined clearly indicated that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. I must confess that I had not the slightest idea how this affliction could ever become an asset. However, I continued my practice of wrapping that philosophy in bedtime stories, hoping the time would come when he would find some plan by which his handicap could be made to serve some useful purpose. Reason told me plainly that there was no adequate compensation for the lack of ears and natural hearing equipment. Desire backed by faith pushed reason aside and inspired me to carry on. As I analyzed the experience in retrospect, I can see now that my son's faith in me had much to do with the astounding results. He did not question anything I told him. I sold him the idea that he had a distinct advantage over his older brother, and that this advantage would reflect itself in many ways. For example, the teachers in school would observe that he had no ears, and because of this, they would show him special attention and treat him with extraordinary kindness. They always did. His mother saw that by visiting the teachers and arranging with them to give the child extra attention necessary. I sold him the idea, too, that when he became old enough to sell newspapers, his older brother had already become a newspaper merchant, he would have a big advantage over his brother for the reason that people would pay him extra money with for his wares because they could see that he was bright, industrious boy, despite the fact he had no ears.
So selling is not a bad thing. Selling is not a bad thing because you got to sell your son in the burning desire. So a lot of people consider selling as a bad. You're selling your family on many different ideas. Just there's no transaction of money. There's no exchange of money. That's why you don't consider it selling. But in reality, you're selling. You sold yourself to your girlfriend. I sold myself to my wife. that, hey, I'm a better option for you versus all these other guys that you might want to go out with, right? So it's selling. There was no transaction, there was no money exchange, right? But you got to sell the idea sometimes. That's why it's so important for entrepreneurs to understand the concept of selling. Now, did I sell myself to my wife? No, I just highlighted all the benefits that it will come, out of this relationship. Hey, I speak different languages, different background, different life experiences. So it's very. Don't think just because you don't speak English fluently, you're handicapped.
No.
Because in my experience, individuals that speak different languages can get into different communities and explain everything there is to know about the financial services. That's why we're dominating in the Hispanic community. That's why we're dealing with a lot of Persians, a lot of Armenians, a lot of different people from different ethnicity, different background. That's not a disadvantage. That's actually an advantage, that you can learn the materials and be able to translate into your own culture and be able to connect with them on a different level. So we're about to get into the Indian market. I mean, it's expanding really, really fast. We're very excited about that. So it's not a disadvantage. It's how you take it and how you apply it for your success.
Beautiful. We can notice that gradually the child's hearing was improving. Moreover, he had not the slightest tendency to be self-conscious because of his affliction. When he was about 7, he showed the first evidence that our method of servicing his mind was bearing fruit. For several months, he begged for the privilege of selling newspapers, but his mother would not give her consent. She was afraid that his deafness made it unsafe for him to go on the street alone. Finally, he took matters in his own hands. One afternoon, when he was left at home with the servants, he climbed through the kitchen window, shinnied to the ground.
That kid was one determined kid.
And
he was going to go sell some newspaper and make some money. Nobody was going to stop him.
He borrowed 6 cents in capital from the neighborhood shoemaker, invested in papers, sold out, reinvested, and kept repeating it until late that evening. After balancing his accounts and paying back the 6 cents he had borrowed from his banker, he had a net profit of 42 cents. When he got home that night, they found him in bed asleep with the money tightly clenched in his hand. His mother opened his hand, removed the coins, and cried, "Of all things!" Crying over her son's first victory seemed so inappropriate. My reaction was the reverse. I laughed heartily, for I knew that my endeavor to plant in the child's mind an attitude of faith in himself had been successful. His mother saw in his first business venture a little deaf boy who had gone out in the streets and risked his life to earn money. I saw a brave, ambitious, self-reliant little businessman whose stock in himself had been increased 100%. Because he had gone into business on his own initiative and he had won. The transaction pleased me because
And he had no money.
No money.
No money. Repeated the same process till he made profit.
The transaction pleased me because I knew that he had given evidence of a trait of resourcefulness that would go with him all through life. Later events proved this to be true. When his older brother wanted something, he would lie down on the floor, kick his feet in the air, cry for it, and get it. When the little deaf boy wanted something, he would plan a way to earn the money, then buy it for himself. He still follows that plan. Truly, my own son has taught me that handicaps can be converted into stepping stones on which one may climb towards some worthy goal unless they are accepted of obstacles and used as alibis. The little deaf boy went through the grades, high school, and college without being able to hear his teachers, excepting when they shouted loudly at close range. He did not go to school for the deaf. We would not permit him to learn the sign language. We were determined that he should live a normal life and associate with normal children, and we stood by that decision, although it cost us many heated debates with school officials.
You stood by that decision. So you make a decision and you stand by it. Very, very, very important.
While he was in high school, he tried an electrical hearing aid, but it was of no value to him due, we believed, to a condition that was disclosed when the child was 6 by Dr. J. Gordon Wilson of Chicago. When he operated on one side of the boy's head, he discovered that there was no sign of natural hearing equipment. During his last week in college, 18 years after the operation, something happened which marked the most important turning point of his life. Through what seemed to be mere chance, he became into possession of another electrical hearing device, which was sent to him on a trial. He was slow about testing it due to his disappointment with a similar device. Finally, he picked the instrument up and more or less carefully placed it on his head, hooked up the battery, and lo, as if by a stroke of magic, his lifelong desire for normal hearing became a reality. For the first time in his life, he heard practically as well as any person with normal hearing. God moves in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform.
No comment on that.
Overjoyed because of the changed world which had been brought to him through his hearing device, he rushed to the telephone, called his mother, and heard her voice perfectly. The next day he plainly heard the voices of his professors in class for the first time in his life. Previously he could hear them only when they shouted at short range. He heard the radio. He heard the talking pictures. For the first time in his life he could converse freely with other people without the necessity of their having to speak loudly. Truly, he had come into possession of a changed world. He had refused to accept nature's error, and by persistent desire, we had induced nature to correct that error through the only practical means available. Desire had commenced to pay dividends, but the victory was not yet complete. The boy still had to find a definite and practical way to convert his handicap into equivalent asset.
Mm-hmm. Very, very important. Now we're talking about you planting the seed and let God do the rest. Don't try to figure everything out. You do what you need to do. Let the nature do that. Now we're not going to get religious on anybody over here because we're talking about faith and everything else. But if you believe in God, you do your part, He's going to do His part. Mm-hmm. And He doesn't miss.
Yeah, and it's not even, guys, it's not even about religion. This is the universe. So whatever you believe in, it's all about that. Is putting it out and receiving.
That's it. That's how it goes. Do you want to continue the next on this?
Yeah. I think we'll go into the next video, guys, because we're gonna wrap it up, I believe, on the next video. So why don't we wrap this up, Vahid? And once again, if you guys have any comments about what we read today in this chapter on desire, please let us know. Subscribe to us for more videos, as well as there's a notification bell so you guys know exactly when we're posting stuff. And once again, we're Team Elite, Zone.com, Team Elite on Instagram, YouTube.
Napoleon.Hill on Instagram. So if, just follow us over there and comment and let us know what else we have not covered. Or if you have any feedback, let us know so we can follow up with that. Good seeing you.
Bye, guys. See you next time.
Take care.